What up, YouTube? I wanted to give you guys kind of like an overview, or the PowerPoint presentation of CnD Arena. Oh man, I've told myself I would never do this in a million years, but here I am. So this is CnD Arena, so I'm going to give you guys kind of like an idea of what this game is about. So here's an overview. CnD Arena is a duel between two players that are in control of a massive army. When you defeat an opponent's creature, you earn a prize. First player to earn all their prizes wins the game. Now, obviously, there's more to it, but we'll get into that here in the next few slides. Oh god, it just sounds weird. All right, so what makes CnD different? Well, it's a mix of great TCGs and games like Magic the Gathering. You have Pokemon, you have Yu-Gi-Oh, and then also a game called Pixel Tactics. And then if you guys are also familiar to a couple of my older games, obviously Tactics, Tactic Legends. Also, this is like a revamp of my old school CnD Arena. I also have, I think that's pretty much it actually. But it also adds my own leveling system. And then CnD also has permanent choices. And we'll get to that in a second, but yeah, look, let's get on. So, there's different card types in the game. The first card type are creatures. So the creatures, there's various different creatures at various different levels, with various different alignments, and we'll get to the different levels and alignments and stuff like that in a second. There's also action cards. As you can see here, this action card is an action spell called Freeze. And then we also have action traps. And then lastly, we have action items. Now during your turn, you can play as many creatures as you want, as long as you are at that current level. But actions are a little bit different. You can only play one of each type during your turn. So you can play one action spell on your turn, and you can play one action item on your turn, and you can play one action trap on your turn. Spells will tell you exactly what the effect is going to be, as well as items. Items, you equip them to heroes and it'll tell you where to equip them. So for the X crossbow, here it tells you equip back row, which means it's going to only equip to a creature in the back row. And it'll tell you what effect it has. Traps, on the other hand, give you a condition, which means when a certain condition is met, then the trap is triggered. So for this particular trap, Puzzle Blocks, when a rival creature attacks an ally creature, then you can play this card from your hand to block the rival creature's attack, and no other rival creature can attack this turn. That's a pretty powerful trap. But as you can tell in the top, you will see that the font is in purple, and where you'll see an X in the center of the card. This will indicate the card being an epic card, so forcing you to be the current level, that current level. So you have to be a level 3 to play this card. Card layout. We'll start from the top left and kind of work our way down the card. So in the blue flag, we have the level. So Ori here is a level 1. Then just to the right of that is the card name. So obviously his name is Ori. And to the right of that, in the red flag, you have its amount of life points, or life it has. And Ori has only 3 life. It is a creature, and it is also part of a neutral alignment. It's 3 armor class, the AC stands for armor class. What this pretty much means is when you are attacking, say, Ori was attacking another Ori would have to roll a 6-sided die or a 1d6, and he would have to roll higher than that 3. So it has to be a 4, 5, or 6 in order to attack that rival. If he does not roll a 4, 5, or 6, then my Ori will be countered by the rival Ori, if that makes any sense. So there is countering in the game, but you cannot counter a counter. This can't keep going back and forth until somebody ends up rolling. So you only have one chance to counter if they do not roll a 4, 5, or 6. Then, obviously in the center, we have the picture. So it is pixelated artwork. Just below the art, you have the 0 and that gold orb, and that indicates how much how many cards you can discard to play that card if you want that current level. So say if I was a level 2, or I had a level 2 card, it would have a number 1 in the center there, and I can discard 1 card to play that level 2 card if I was a level 1. So it kind of gets cards out of your hand even if you want that card. So below that, we have the front row melee kind of attack here. And here we have Horn Strike. Now what happens is if I play Ori in the front row, then Horn Strike will be my available ability. If I play him in the back row, Dodge will be my available ability for the back row. So only certain abilities will trigger depending on your choice on where you place that card. So it's very important because once you place that card there, it is a permanent choice and it is a permanent effect. So you put him there, you can't move him any longer. And then next to the ability, it'll also tell you how much damage Ori will do. So both accounts, Ori will only be doing 1 damage. And then of course you want to read the effect and the ability of what Ori will do, depending on what row he's in. So for Horn Strike, he has a guard ability, which means when attacked, the attacking creature receives 2 direct damage. So as soon as I make a move and I say, hey, I'm going to attack that person, then I am attacking that creature. So if somebody was to attack Ori, immediately that attacking creature would receive 2 direct damage. So that's pretty detrimental. Then we have Dodge, which is a passive ability, which means it just stays in effect while he's in play. So while in play, cannot be attacked by rival creatures in the front row. That's very, very, very awesome. So that's Ori. As I said, there's 4 different alignments in previous videos. You have your neutral alignments, which are more of your defenders and your passive-aggressive creatures in the game, where they just kind of, they don't do a whole lot of damage, except for this elephant. This elephant's doing some crazy damage, but they're usually very low on damage, but their defense is where it's at. They're going to have a better armor class than most, a higher life, which you'll see that in the elephant. Usually you don't see a level 3 creature with 7 life. But yeah, they just kind of stand their ground and they'll do the best they can to defend. So that's neutral. The light creatures are more of your supportive creatures. They really kind of help your team out in whatever way they can. They're also very good healers, so they can heal, I don't know, other creatures on your team. Again, just supporting them. So they're really good in that aspect. They're not hugely amazing in stats though. So their life and their armor class and maybe even some of their attacks might be a little bit lower. But if you had a whole team of light creatures, you're going to be buffing them like crazy. So very, very powerful in numbers. The dark creatures are very dependent on mostly the aspect of being defeated or the discard pile itself. They're also great at debuffing your rival. So that's huge. So say for Abomination, passive, immune to all action spells. Alright, you just debuffed him. He's also got Scared Straight, Ambush, which means when played. So when played, open any one closed rival creature that's in play. And I'll go over open and closed here in a little bit, but that's, oh god, that is one effect that the dark creatures have, and it is amazing. And then chaotic. Chaotic creatures are all, they're all just brutality, crazy madness. Very rarely are you going to see them with any kind of armor class at all. They're very careless, but they're hitting, and they're hitting hard. A lot of the times they'll bypass the armor class and you don't even have to roll. Most of the time they'll just do direct damage as soon as they're played. So they're very, very aggressive and very crazy and bananas, but they're careless. They don't have any armor class most of the time, so gotta look out for that. Choices. So some of the choices I was kind of talking about here are the when you get a prize or you level up when you defeat an enemy. So that's a permanent choice. What'll happen is when you defeat an enemy, or an enemy creature rather, when that enemy creature is killed, you get a choice. Do you want to choose a prize, which there are only 5 prizes, so it's not going to take long, Or do you want to level up? Do you want to start using better leveled creatures to try to take out your opponent in different tactical or strategic ways? So that's very, very important to kind of think about while you're playing the game. Next, you have the front row or the back row. Once you place a creature into that row, it's a permanent, that creature stays there. So that ability only works if it's in that particular row. So that is a huge thing to also think about. And then this one's not as permanent, but opening and closing heroes, and we'll get rival creatures, or creatures, not rival creatures, but opening and closing creatures. Sorry, I'm getting all confused. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of the front rows and the back rows. So if you have all the creatures in play, what's going to end up happening is you have your front row and your back row. You can only have 3 in your front row and only 3 in your back row. This kind of balances the game out big. Now, this is a pretty poor example, but my PowerPoint is very frustrating to try to use. You're only going to have 1 card with the same name in your deck. You're not going to have 6 mimics. You'll only have 1 mimic if you choose to put a mimic in your deck. So it's very important to choose what card you're going to put in your deck, because you can only have 1 of each type of card. But this is what it would look like when you're playing the actual game. This is what your play area would be. So you'll only have 3 creatures in the front row and 3 creatures in the back row. Now, opening and closing. Now, if anybody's familiar to Yu-Gi-Oh, it's much like attack mode and defend mode. A couple key differences here. All right, so when you play a card and you have them open, when you're open, everything is normal. You can attack as normal. You can use all your abilities. You can do whatever you need to do. But the downside or the con for having an open card is if an enemy creature defeats, like Mimic here, the open Mimic, they'll have that choice of leveling up or gaining a prize. Whereas in closed you can no longer attack, you can no longer use any of your abilities, and if you had an armor class, it is immediately reduced to 0. So that is a big thing to realize. Now this stops the enemy though from choosing, hey, am I going to get a prize or a level up? They will not be able to have that choice if they defeat this creature. You can also attack your own creatures too, so putting a creature into closed mode and then attacking your own creature will not only open up an available spot in play, but it'll also keep the rival enemy from defeating your creature, I guess. It doesn't really matter. But it opens up a new spot on the playfield, so that's very good. But hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And then we have the, I think it was Wand and Sword. They're the ones who mentioned it to me. LCG is actually a living card game, and it's actually taken by Fantasy Flight Games. So he did give me some insight. This game would be called an expandable card game or an ECG. So what we have here is Arc of Legends. Now that's the base deck. It's going to have 100 cards. Those 100 cards are 100 completely different cards. It's enough cards for you and another player to kind of build a deck with and verse each other. You'll have 70 creatures and 30 actions. Each deck will consist of 40 cards. And I think that's pretty much it. You'll also have the rules in there. The only thing that these games will not come with is dice, and you will need a dice. And this is to alleviate cost and pretty much alleviate, mainly just cost. There's only so much room in a card box, and when you have a dice in a card box, I would have to expand the card box, which would cost even more, and it's just a pain in the butt. So none of these games will have dice in them, but you will need at least one 6-sided die to play. So Arc of Legends is the $100 or $100 100 card pack, and in there, like I said, you'll get 70 creatures and then 30 actions and a whole lot of fun. But if you want to expand your game, or you want to kind of concentrate on a certain alignment, we have 4 different alignments and their decks, corresponding decks to go with them. So you got Forgotten Kingdom. Forgotten Kingdoms will be your neutral cards. So in there you'll have 40 creatures and then 10 action cards to choose from. And then Crypt of Shadows if you can't guess, it will be the dark alignment. Castle of Ethereal, same thing, it'll be the light alignment. And then Pits of Madness will be the chaotic alignment. Again, if you want to expand on the game, the cool thing is with these, you can pick up Arc of Legends, which is your base deck, and then of course mix that with any of these different things. Realm of Artifacts is 50 cards that are strictly and nothing but artifact cards or action cards. Again, this is to expand on what you already you have. If you have Arc of Legends, each one of these will be fairly cheap too. That's the good thing. So I think each pack will be about $8 to $9. Arc of Legends will be between I think about $16 to $17 or $16 to $18 rather. But very cheap, especially for the amount of stuff that you're getting in. And I'm taking zero profit on this. I think maybe it's just some change, and it's because GameCrafter makes me round up to a 99-cent thing. So if it was like $15.50, they will make me go up to $15.99. So I will get some change. But that's that right there. And that's the game. So hopefully you guys kind of get an idea of how to play this game and kind of an idea of what the game's about to pique your interest slightly more. I'm really excited. I can't wait to show off more of the game, and hopefully this did a pretty good job of giving you that overview. Thanks for watching, everybody, and continue to shine. I don't know what that means, but thanks for watching.